Hey guys, Justin Roberts here with a deck profile of my blue Piccolo deck. This is the one that went undefeated in Swiss at Gen Con. I really like this deck. Maybe it'll give some ideas to some of you guys out there who's currently trying to find something different to play other than the current meta. So I hope you like it. Active player turn counter. Blue Mastery. Piccolo is our MP. AT tables. Let's get to it. So we're going to be running all 7 Dragon Balls. Bulma, Kami, Master Roshi. 2 Mentals, 1 Lookout. 1 Info Gathering. 1 Heroic Plan. 1 Dragon Radar. 2 Visiting the Past. 3 Blue Tricks. 3 Blue Dominance. 1 Time is the Warrior's Tool. 1 Blue Farewell. 2 Heroic Energy Spheres. 2 Confrontations. 2 Blue Fears. And 3 Shifting Maneuvers. 3 Crouches. 3 Vicarious Defense. 2 Takedowns. 2 Interventions. 2 Head Knocks. 2 Betrayals. 3 Narrow Escape. 3 Barrier. 2 Neck Beams. 2 Overpowering. 1 Blue Terror. So the deck's going to run all 7 Dragon Balls. This is our primary win condition. Just the way that we win. And this is the most important aspect of this deck. For our allies, the reason why we're going to be running all of them, we're going to go through it. So Bulma, in my opinion, she's important. A lot of people think that she's, past her time and that I should be running her, but at the end of the day, she takes up a crit that could possibly take up one of your Dragon Balls, and that is what's the most important thing to me. So let's say you're playing against a Black Krillin. You can get his Destructo Disc, and now he has no choice but to target his crit on Bulma, which is, to me, okay, as long as he doesn't get my Dragon Ball. And of course, he's only gonna take care of it when he has Destructo Disc, and that's sometimes fine as long as you have your tricks on the field. But that's the reason why she's in there. Kami's in there because at the end of the day, if you can't ball out on your opponent, you're gonna try to outlast him. He's gonna help with that, letting you rejuvenate 2 at the end of every turn. And if there is any instance where he does leave the field, he goes and gets a Dragon Ball, which is fine with me. And Roshi, he's going to work towards locking down any decks that try to search their deck and or yours, i.e. Black. A lot of blue do a searching, and Namekian, they do a lot of searching. So if you have him in his hands, sometimes you have to try to assess whether, because you search also, so you just got to figure out what's more important, them searching or you searching. For the most part, if I get them, I play them, because they're going to try and get rid of them. So you're going to be able to search, so it's not that big of a deal. I run 2 Mentals. Wish I could run 3. This card is so key to this deck, being able to see your opponent's hand and assessing what they want and or is trying to do is just super important. You're defending, and you can see how many attacks they have and attacks they don't, whether they don't have blocks. You can neck beam them. All those things are important to know, and also being able to figure out what you can take. So you can look at his hand and go, well, I can't block it all, but I can stop that and I can take that, do minimum damage. 1 Lookout, I really wish I can put in more, but the 1 is fine, especially with Dominance. You're gonna get it out when you need it, so it's not too big of a deal. That Black Corruption is a card that you are afraid of, because if you lose your Dragon Balls, especially more than 1, because it's only 1 Info Gathering. So this card is super important to try and stop that. Namekian with that milling every time they play Dragon Balls, because you run all 7. So 3 Dominance, This is very key because level 2 Piccolo is really where you want to be. I've won games on 1 where you're definitely going to have to try and mill them out and, you know, do little chip damage with them. But when you get to 2, that's when the game really starts. That's when you really can let your Dragon Balls go, because if you're playing like a Black Krillin, even Blue Krillin, most Krillins at all, or even Namekian, you really want to hold off on playing Dragon Balls till later in the game, because you can't just play them when you're level 1 and then just start losing them, and then you're playing an uphill battle trying to get them all back. So you do not want to try and do that. Tricks, get your Dragon Balls back without having to use your master, without having to use Piccolo's power. That's always key, especially if you want to get more than 1 in 1 turn. And this is the only way you're going to get last Dragon Ball from the Namekian. So you gotta run 3. 2 visitings, really don't have to explain why you run visiting class. There's really no need to explain that. Dragon Radar, really no explanation. Goes and get a Dragon Ball. Definitely, if you are gonna enter and go and get Dragon Ball 4 to Dragon Ball 2, I'm sorry, to go and destroy some of their setups and drills. Now, Heroic Plan, it is very versatile in this. I use it for either, I know it's to get an ally setup or drill. I mostly, for the most part, will go and get Dragon Radar. It's usually its primary focus. But if I can't get Radar, or if I need one of my allies, Bulma, Kami, or Roshi, that is going to be its secondary function. And info gathering, that doesn't really need an explanation. I run 2 betrayals. A lot of people think I'm stupid for running 2. They say you should run 3. Pretty straightforward. This is to banish allies and to get rid of any setups or drills that you really can't deal with, like smoothness. 2 head knocks. I ran this originally because this deck's original purpose was to counter red and just, you know, beat everything else. I used to run 3, but now I'm down to 2 because red is really not as big as a problem as it used to be. So that's really its focus. Intervention is a great card because not only can you use it with Piccolo's effect, because it is not instead, it's banished after it's discarded, so it still gets the effect for discarding. It is 2 blocks in your hand for energy attacks, so you can use Mastery, go get another one, and then use it to stop one. So super important to be able to replenish your hand and do 1 for 1. Takedown, once again, another one of those cards that was originally designed to counteract red, or any deck that decides that it wants to try and anger out, or its main focus is to get to the higher stages. You can just bring them down in turn because it's important. Precarious Defense, this is another one of those cards that it is a defense, but you got to remember that it does not stop the attack. It only prevents the damage. So if it's a card like Dig or anything else that has a hit effect, you're going to take it. I generally never use this card to stop physicals. I only use it to put a setup to the bottom of the deck. Crouch is one of those cards that you just have to run. It stops physical. It goes to the top if you're lower, and it has 3 endurance. You really can't not run this card. If it wasn't for its 3 endurance, I probably win it. But it's just a great card. Blue Terror is another one of those cards that you just have to run. Let you get any card to your hand for the most part. Its Time is a Warrior's Tool or Blue Farewell. These are what's going to get your allies. Not much explaining for overpowering. Whatever you need for situations where if they enter, this to me is a stop. It's not a attack. So I can use it to go and get Bulma and just take whatever's in their hand. Or I can, if I know it's Ginyu, I'm just going to go get Roshi so that he cannot search. Blue Neck Beams. This is one of those things that I use to try and counteract Black Krillin. It does have its red and or cards that try to anger out focus, but this was originally designed to get Krillin off of level 1 because you do not want him critting your balls back, and it just makes it a lot harder when someone's on level 2 to try and stop this deck. Barriers are for Ginyu and for for Kami. So I've won, I can't tell you how many games I've won where my opponent attacks Barrier, Roshi for last ball. And this is another one of those cards that just has to be run. Narrow Escape stops any energy attack, puts 2 energies from the discard to the top, and has 3 endurance. Not only does this deck rely on stopping, but it heavily relies on enduring. So cards like Dig, which really hurt me, or Turtles, who lets you not endure, they just are nightmares for this deck. 3 shifting maneuvers. That's another one of those cards that just stop. It's a hybrid stop, and it has 2 endurance. You do fear that someone's gonna try and sphere it, but you just can't replace it with a different stop. I used to run 3 fears, but what I've learned is that you do not need to do as much crit as you think. This deck out crits most any decks, so just having 2 is really good, especially in terms of getting rid of a card from your hand if you don't need to draw a card that you may need, especially if you set it up with Narrow Escape. 2 confrontations. This deck actually during Gen Con did not run any confrontations. It's something that I found needs to be run. The original reason why I didn't run it is because this deck is very patient, and you do not necessarily ever want to enter, and having this card just creates that sensation that you think you can enter and be unstoppable, but you really have to be patient, and I generally will discard this card and just try to keep it in there and get my visitings when they enter. Same thing with Heroic Energy Sphere. I did not run these during Gen Con, but they're very necessary, and they're cards that will make you feel invulnerable and tempt you to do things that you shouldn't do. Another card that I will discard and only get it back with my Visiting the Past when my opponent enters, especially if I can see their hand. For the most part, you usually can. Farewell. This is one of the only times that I will enter, especially if Kami's on the field. It's one of my favorite moves, especially if they have visitings on the field. So you just go enter, they go visiting for whatever it is. For my favorite moves when they go and get their Times of Words of 2, and you just visiting Kami, go get your ball, and you just pass. And there's really no explanation for Times of Words 2 is your savior for when they enter, and you can see their hand is just full of monstrous beast attacks. So that's the deck. A couple points I wanted to make for people who might want to run these things and don't have cards like Heroic Plans or maybe no spheres. I can give you a couple of things as alternations. So if you don't have a Heroic Plan, I would recommend maybe running a Blue Readiness, because even though you can't search for the drills in your setups, getting your allies with it is also important. So this is going to replace that factor. We'll let you get 2, so maybe you can do some better loots with Kami. If you bury Kami, get Kami back. Maybe you can run this, find space for it to run it. I found that I couldn't. If you can't get spheres, these are some alternate stops that you may be able to run. I'm not a huge fan of Blockade. People wonder why I don't run it initially. This deck heavily relies on when your opponent enters, you being able to draw a stop every time. So this is not a stop I can draw every time, so I deemed it unreliable. This is another defense that you can run instead of Heroic Energy Sphere. It depends if you're really fair reds or things that rely on anger. Another card that's a great stop that also will help you for decks that rely on anger. This is actually one of the cards that I did run during Gen Con in place of the cards that I didn't run. I think it's a really good card. Let you look at the top 3. Let your opponent choose one to put in your hand, but what it really does, it lets you set up what to draw with Piccolo. So you would always use this because you can see their hand for the most part Wait till they use their physical, stop it, whatever goes to your hand, set up the next two to make sure you can draw off with Piccolo and get something better. Another alternate that I'd like to point out is this deck also can be run using Krillin. Krillin with the San Diego as your number one. The only changes of the deck that would be is your 3 blue dominances would be 3 solar flares. That is the only change. I actually ran this at the last tournament in New York just now, and it did fairly well. I don't blame Krillin for why it didn't do well. A lot of people did, but I don't. So if you wanted to run it that way, I think it's a better matchup against Black Krillin, because what happens is this deck finds that Black Krillin will enter, attack a Krillin, and then use his mastery to just crit away whatever he wants, mostly taking your balls, and then you got to try and get them back by using your mastery after. But what happens with Krillin is the moment they attack with their Krillin, you attack with yours, and if they're the one that entered, it doesn't matter when the cards are discarded, they're going to take your balls. Really doesn't matter what they get to do with it as long as you get it back. I never cared what they can draw with the card. They can take 6 ball, draw 3, as long as you can take extra attacks, as long as you can draw 3, take extra defenses. It really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is as long as those balls end on your side. It's the only thing that matters. So that's the deck, and that's the alternates. Hope you guys like that.